What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're diving into access packages in Entra ID, a powerful way to automate access to apps, groups, and resources for your users. What if I told you that granting the right access on day one could be as simple as clicking request access? No tickets, no delays, just secure, automated access to everything your user needs. This is part one of a two-part series on access packages and entitlement management, and today we're covering what they are, why you should be using them, and how to set one up. You'll see how we can make day one frictionless, secure, and fully auditable using entitlement management. So, what are access packages? Access packages are part of entitlement management within Microsoft Entra ID, and you can think of them as pre-configured bundles of access, permissions, groups, teams, SharePoint sites, apps, all wrapped and ready to be delivered on request. So, why would you use them? Well, because they reduce the manual effort required for onboarding. They enforce just-in-time access with built-in approvals, and they offer automatic expiry and reviews, so access doesn't hang around forever. Whether you're onboarding new employees, providing access to external contractors, or managing access for cross-functional teams, access packages ensure people get the right access for the right amount of time without opening the floodgates. And there's some pretty cool advanced scenarios that I plan to cover in the future. For now, let's jump into Entra ID, and I'll walk you through the resources I'll be using for this scenario and how to set up an access package for it. Okay, so before we get into building the access package, I'm just going to run through a couple of groups that we're going to use as part of this scenario. So first group I want to look at is just a pretty standard dynamic security group. It's essentially looking for any user that does not have an empty employee ID. So anywhere where an employee ID is listed within their employee ID attribute, they're going to be added into this group. This group is then going to be used for license assignment. So users will automatically be assigned the correct licenses. Next one is finance new starters. So again, this is a dynamic security group. This is in using the employee hire date to dynamically add the user, and essentially what it's going to do is it's going to look for the employee hire date as greater than or equal to today's date minus 30 days. The idea here being anybody who is added into the finance department will initially be added into this group. After 30 days, they'll be removed from the group. So this will ensure all of our finance new starters will be added into this dynamic group. I then have again another basic dynamic security group, and this is just looking for anybody within the finance department is going to be added into this group. Idea behind this one is maybe you want to automatically assign, persona-based conditional access policies. Just as an example, you could then maybe use a group like this. For that, we're also going to use this group for assigning the access packages. Lastly, I've got a static group, which is essentially just here to kind of simulate how you might give access to a third-party application using an access package and group assignment. So that's kind of what that group's there for. I do have a couple of other resources. So I've got a SharePoint site that is going to be used for the purposes of this scenario, and a Microsoft team. So let's get into building the access package. So we can obviously access that from the identity governance page and then access packages. But before we jump into there, we're just going to take a quick look at catalogs. So by default, everyone will have the general catalog, which is just, as you can see here, the built-in catalog. You can think of a catalog as a container for resources. This container will hold resources that you can then assign to access packages, and within the catalog itself you can choose whether the resources, whether that catalog is available, and whether it's available to external users, for example. So it's kind of just a nice, tidy, neat way of grouping your resources together. So on that basis, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to create a finance catalog, and it's going to hold our finance resources. We do want to enable it, and we do not want to enable it for external users. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Once that's created, we're just going to jump straight into the catalog, and then we're going to go ahead and we're going to add some resources to the catalog. Okay, so our catalog now exists. So we're going to go straight into finance. We're going to go to resources, and we're going to go and add our resources to the catalog. We're going to start with our third-party finance app group. So when the user requests access to the access package, they also get access to the third-party finance app. Then we're also going to give access to the finance team so that our user is automatically invited into the finance team and is able to collaborate with their colleagues. We've got a SharePoint site to add in here as well, finance department, so we'll go ahead and add that in. You can add Entra roles into an access package. I believe they've decided to remove privileged roles from that. I think it's just the non-privileged roles that you can add into an access package now. Idea being privileged roles are all managed via PIM instead. Maybe someone in the comments can comment on that. You can obviously also assign applications directly. So in this case, I'm using the example of adding a security group. The security group then gives access to, in this case, my made up third-party finance app. But maybe you've got those applications already integrated within Entra, and if so, you can go ahead and add those applications directly in from here as well. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to add those resources into our catalog. Now it's time to build our access package. So we're going to go with new access package, and we're going to call it finance resources. Use this access package to request access to the finance resources. There we go. And we're going to choose the finance catalog. Okay, so now it will, by default, because we've already created the catalog, we've added the resources to it, and we've chosen that catalog in the last step. Now when we select groups and teams, it's only going to show the resources that were part of that catalog. If you decide, oh, I maybe missed something, I want to add something in there, you can go ahead and you can check this box up here, and that will show all of the groups and teams that are within your tenant and allow you to automatically add them straight into the catalog and into the access package. We did that ahead of time, so we don't need to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to check both of these. We're going to add those in. I'm going to go to our SharePoint site, and we're going to add that one in. Now you'll notice on the right hand side here, we've got some options, some drop downs. So in the finance team, this is a Microsoft team. We've got the option to add the user, whoever's requesting this access package. Are they going to be added as an owner, or are they going to be added as a member? So in this case, we're going to go with member. Same applies to our third-party finance app group. Do we want to add them as an owner or a member? So you can see there's different scenarios there depending on what your requirements are. And then lastly is our SharePoint site. SharePoint sites by default get visitors, owners, and members. So in this case, we're going to want to make sure that the user is added as a member to the site. Okay, so time to build out the request requirements for our access package. So who can request the access package? We want it to be for users within our directory. And in this case, we're going to choose specific users and groups. Now remember, we used that dynamic security group earlier. This one here. So this is going to be a finance department specific access package. So in this case, We only want users within our finance department to be able to request it. So we're going to use that group there. In terms of approval, do we require approval in order to allow the users to access the resources within here? Yes, we're gonna turn approval on. We do require requester justification, and for this purposes of this, we're just going to have one stage of approvals, but you can have up to 3. So in terms of who do you want those approvers to be, options are manager as approver, so that uses the manager attribute that will be set within Entra ID. You can choose specific approvers, or you can choose sponsors as approvers. I'll maybe touch on what sponsors are in a future video. We're going to go with manager as approval. When you do choose this option, you do have to add a fallback. You'll notice you don't get that when you choose specific approvers. The idea behind that is if a user does not have a manager set, then the approval will go to somebody else. So in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and add me in there, even though I will also be the manager. Decision must be made in how many days? So if a request is not approved within this time period after it is made, it will be automatically rejected. So just have a good think about, how long these decisions must go on for. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put 5. So that's five days in there. Require approver justification. So require justification from the manager in this case. So from me. Do we want to enable that? Do you know what? We will do that. We'll show what that looks like. If we select this button here, we've got some advanced settings. If no action is taken, forward to alternate approvers. This is exactly what it sounds like. If no action is taken after a specific amount of time, which you can actually define here, send it to somebody else. So again, just kind of covering yourself, providing a little bit of a backup for that approval process. If the manager or the fallback user hasn't gone through and done anything with that request. In this case, we're going to set that to no. We do not want to disable assignment emails, so we're going to leave that set to no. We want to enable new requests for the access package, so we're going to leave that on. And allow managers to request on behalf of employees. It's a preview feature, but pretty cool. You know what? We'll turn it on. Do we want to bypass approval stage if the manager is the requester and approver? Yeah, I think that's a sensible one to enable, so we'll go ahead and we'll turn that on. Next, we get to requester information. So just as it states up here, we can collect additional information and attributes from the requester. I'm not going to get into too much detail here. I'm going to save that for another video, but maybe there's some specific information that you want to know from the end user as part of the access package request. An example might be we use access packages a lot to provide temporary exclusions from conditional access policies. Usually when people are traveling abroad, you, prior to approving something like that, might want to ask the user, what country are you traveling to? And you can state in here, we request short text and it's required. So the user has to answer that question before they can submit the access package request. In this case, we're not going to bother with this. We don't need to ask any additional questions at this stage. So we're going to move on to the lifecycle. Access package assignments. So once an access package has been approved and has been assigned to the user, how long before it expires? I'm going to leave that set to 365 days. You could, in theory, put that to something like 90 and have the access package due to expire every 90 days, and then the end user themselves has to go through the process of re-requesting access. I guess that's a form of governance to those resources. But you'll see you've also got this access reviews option here. And I think what might be a better way to manage that is using those access reviews. So let's go ahead and set that back to 365. So once our finance user has requested access, they're going to get access to those resources to start with for a total of 365 days. Users can request a specific timeline. If you set this to yes, when they go through the process of requesting the access package, they can choose to start access package assignment from a specific date. We're not going to allow that because we don't need to do that. We want to just have it apply straight away. If we look at our advanced options here, we've got allow users to extend access. So that is as the access package assignment is getting towards those 365 days, do we want to allow end users to extend it? You'd like to hope that most of your users, when they start within your organization, will last longer than 365 days. So it's likely that you may want them to be able to extend access to those resources. So in this case, I'm going to select yes, but I'm also going to require approval to grant that extension. So there is somebody within the business that then has to approve that again. So I'm going to set that to yes. Now on to access reviews. And this is kind of where the, I guess some of the advanced governance piece comes into play. We want to make sure that users have got access to the resources that they need, but we also want to make sure that they should still have access to those resources on some sort of periodic basis. And that's where access reviews come in. So rather than sort of setting this to 90 days and having it expire every 90 days, instead, what we could do is we can have an access review and we can say we want this access to review to start straight away. And every quarter, we would like an access review to go to the user's manager. And again, we've got to set a fallback in here in case the manager doesn't exist. But we can say every quarter, an access review will be sent to the manager, and the manager then has to go through the process of determining if that user still needs access to those resources, therefore governing access to those resources for that user. You can set a duration in days for the access review. So in this case, the default is set to 25. So in this case, the manager has got 25 days to make a decision as to whether that user can still have access to that access package. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to set a fallback in here as myself again. We're going to leave that on the 25 for now. Show advanced access review settings. So this is a couple of additional options here. If reviewers don't respond, so if the user's manager does not respond to the access review, what do we want to happen? We can have no change, which obviously means nothing's going to happen. We can do remove access, or we can take recommendations. The take recommendations comes kind of directly from the decision helpers outcome, if you like. Remove access will automatically remove the user from the access package and remove access from all resources. And like I say, take recommendations will be based on the decision helpers. Decision helpers is things like user to group affiliation. So user to group affiliation is maybe you have an individual within the business that has maybe you have an individual from the sales department, and for some reason that user has this access package, but really it's part of the finance department. That sales user reports to a completely different manager to the rest of the finance department, understandably, because they're different departments. There is no real affiliation there between users in the finance department and users in the sales department. So user to group affiliation can essentially flag that sales user to say, hey, this user kind of stands out as someone that maybe shouldn't have access to these resources. So there's kind of an example of one of the decision helpers. And you can choose to just let the access package take those recommendations. In this case, I'm just going to go ahead, I'm going to set remove access. So if nobody responds, access will just be revoked. Show reviewer decision helpers, yes. And we're going to require reviewer justification as yes. Reminders, yes, we want to make sure that our access reviewers are reminded to get on and do the actual reviews. Custom extensions, not going to get into that now, but essentially if you want to plumb in some sort of third-party process or workflow platform, you can do that using custom extensions. So then we're just going to go ahead and review and create. And that is our access package created. So that's your primer on access packages in Entra ID. In part 2, we'll cover simulating user creation from an HR platform and the user experience. If you found this useful, give it a like, subscribe for more Microsoft 365 tips, and drop a comment below. Are you using access packages yet? Thanks for watching, and I will see you in part 2.